Okay, I guess I'm ready to go.
Huzzah.
Hello. It's been a while since I've been here, but I'm glad to finally be back. I am officially on break. The school year is over, and so I have plenty of time to do whatever the heck I want, I guess. So I've kind of decided that my mornings will be spent kind of doing chores and making sure that I am not completely, useless during the day. But the afternoons are going to be spent painting minis and potentially streaming. So today, what I want to do, at least right now, is I had some Hellblasters that I kind of kit bashed, and I really didn't like how they looked. So I went ahead and stripped them down as best as I could, which turned out to be not that great. But then I kit bashed on some other bits, which were regular Intercessor bits. Because I wanted to go ahead and have a full kit of Intercessors, and right now I have a single squad. So I'm going to go ahead. I forgot to take off part of the sprue on this guy, and I just noticed that. I'm going to go ahead and test out a new way of painting Imperial Fists that I've never done before from Darcy Bono. Darcy, I think that's how you pronounce her name. But I'm going to go ahead and do that, and that's how today is going to start, and I'll see where the world takes us from there. So I've got these guys. I'm not super fond of the baseline Intercessor look, but you know what? I'll deal with it because they are a decent infantry thing, and so I'll go ahead and get these guys painted up because I've been painting a lot of non-Space Marine stuff recently, and I'd just like to get back to it. I am really tickled that they decided to get rid of the 8 million different profiles for the bolter, for the bolt rifle that they can have, and now they're just sticking to one, which is, the bolt rifle. And they've clearly made it more versatile in what it can do, and that's neat and all. But I'm just going to go ahead and have fun painting some basic troops rather than do anything else. I was actually planning on buying another squad. And it's like, what bother buying another squad? You've got a whole bunch of kit bashy stuff you can play with right here. So that's what the plan is for today. Pardon me, I have no idea why, but my nose has decided to run. So I've got these guys here, and I actually haven't done anything with them in a long time. Except for today when I decided to kit bash them. I got them from a commission. It was like a trade-in. And this is what I was left with in terms of usability. He had tried to... The client had tried to make a breacher squad, and it was fine for what it was, I guess, but it wasn't exactly what I would go for. So I kind of kit bashed them back into being Hellblasters, but I really didn't like the Hellblaster look because the arms didn't fit on it right. It looked silly. So I'm going to go ahead and do my best to replicate Darcy Bono's list and how she does Imperial Fists. So first thing I need to do is prime these guys back. I'm going to prime them with... Do I actually have any more of that primer? Yes, I do. With a basic gray. Because I don't have a white primer. And we're going to see how this goes from there. Let's take some airbrush thinner to this stuff because it is a little chunkier than I would like it to be. So let's thin it out just a little bit so it doesn't constantly clog my airbrush. And then we'll get priming. Okay. So yeah, I've just been kind of hunkering down, finishing out the school year, and hoping that everything's going okay and getting really excited for 10th edition. Because I'm liking what I'm seeing so far, and all I can hope is that 10th edition continues to be interesting and continues to make fun changes. I've already seen people doomsay and naysay and be really upset with some of the changes they made, but I'm all for at least giving the game a shot before I decide whether or not I think it's, any good or not. So, there are obviously causes for concern. It's not going to be a perfect rollout since they're basically rebuilding the system. But I'm
I'm excited to have a completely new approach to the game, a completely new approach to list building, just a way to hopefully make it so that I don't end up having to commit an entire afternoon to playing one single game that I don't end up having a lot of fun with. That's my hope, at least. Whether that ends up being the case, no clue. And I suppose we'll find out once the game actually drops and we get a chance to play it. I was very impressed that Games Workshop was able to have such a fairly seamless rollout of the Leviathan starter box, to the point that I managed to snag a copy from the store that I go to and from the official Games Workshop website. That actually blew my mind because everything else seems to be selling out instantaneously. So hopefully that's a good sign of things to come. But yeah, I definitely have a second box. I was originally going to buy it and sell it to someone at cost who wasn't able to get a box, just in case I got lucky. I didn't want to make any kind of profit off of this, but what I think is going to happen instead is that a friend of mine, we're splitting the boxes, or splitting the first box. He wants the Tyranids, and I'm going to go ahead and get the Space Marines. I think what's going to end up happening is he wants to buy the second box of Space Marines off of me for his Space Wolves armor that he's got. So hopefully that'll all work out. And if he doesn't end up buying them, I can just sell it piecemeal on eBay, because it looks like, wow, this is really... Okay, so I'm going a little too heavy-handed time. If I do that, I might be able to turn some kind of profit on it and still get Tyranids. Okay. Let's go ahead and dry this off, because I definitely went way too heavy-handed with the primer on this one. So I'm going to need to let it dry, and then I'll go back and hit it with a second coat. I think thinning down the primer might have been a bit too much, but unfortunately for me, this primer tends to clog my airbrush a lot if I don't do what I just did. So I sprint it on with a fairly thin coat. Let the coat dry, and then I'll hit it with a thicker coat, and hopefully that'll do what I need it to do. But yeah, since these are basic line troops, I don't plan on hitting them with the same degree of detail that I've been hitting some of the other painting projects I've had recently. Hey Montravon, good to see you. Good evening. Haven't seen you in a little bit, though I'm glad to see that you're doing okay. Okay. So how have things been going? Everything doing okay on your side? It is summer for me, and that means that we no longer have school, which means that I am going to basically be home until mid-August. Lots of work at the job. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. Hopefully it's good work that feels like you're accomplishing something. I mean, without divulging too much, what kind of work you got going on there? Because if I remember right, weren't you also a teacher? Probably at a higher level than I am. Or am I thinking of someone else? I definitely have this thing with the intercessors where I don't like their proportions. I feel like they're a little too top-heavy in a weird way. But, you know what? It is what it is. It's either that or they're like oddly stumpy. I don't know. There's something about the intercessor proportions that look off to me. You have a side job at university? Oh, fair enough. Oops. Forgot I can't go too hard with the wobbling because there's probably still a lot of primer in here.
So yeah, have you seen anything? My full job is a team leader as a mechanical engineer. Good gravy. Yeah, you're definitely punching a whole lot higher than I am. Okay, one moment. Sorry, I messed up my brush, so I had to clean it off. So have you seen any of the new news about 10th edition for Warhammer? Is that interesting you at all? Your English is bad today? I don't think so. It seems like it's doing okay. You ordered a box? Fantastic. I'm glad you were able to get one. How long was the wait time for you? Are you sure the average English speaker's English is bad every day? Yeah, that pretty much is the case. No, your English sounds fantastic. Your English looks to be fantastic. I'm having no problems understanding you. So I first of all, I appreciate the attempt to communicate in English, because as an American, I'm not at all fluent in a second language. Oh my goodness, that's really cool. His head cracked. I might have to, no, I think I'll just keep that as battle damage. The back of his head cracked. Can you guys see it? Moment. Right there. That's super neato. I don't know how or why that resin would have happened. It must have been when I twisted it off, because I wanted to reposition where his helmet was looking. That's a resin piece, a 3D print, which is why the head is so astronomically large compared to the other ones. But yeah, I was pleasantly surprised that with the system that Games Workshop set up, that getting a box was so convenient and easy. Because I had heard horror stories about 9th edition's release box, which I didn't get because I was barely into Warhammer at that point, so I ended up buying it later on eBay, I think. But yeah, I was pleasantly surprised to see how easy it was to get a Leviathan box. Because I was interested in getting like the Lionel Johnson stuff, and obviously that didn't happen because they were sold out within a minute. And I just kept seeing the reports on how every box they put out for Gallow Fall or Into the Dark or whatever the heck they were calling their most recent Kill Team box, how that sold out instantly. It was a lot of very quick and immediate, things are sold out kind of situations. So I was really happy to see I have a small shop here. There I get every time with luck what I need. That's really cool. So they've always had everything in stock that you've needed. That's impressive and amazing. The Lion is a problem in Germany. He's a problem everywhere. I don't think they've made a new box for him yet, which I find very funny, because they mentioned when the Lion sold out almost instantaneously, don't worry, you will have the Lion will be releasing separately long before 10th edition comes out. You'll have plenty of time to build him and do whatever you need to do before 10th edition. And clearly that hasn't happened. You have one? That's fantastic. Yeah, I really wanted to get one solely because it was a neat looking model, and I've gotten to the point where I kind of made the army I wanted to play. Though now with 10th edition coming out, that's changing. So, I'm now just kind of painting the models I want to paint. Have you put them together yet and painted them? Yeah, that's kind of the thing. I have yet to see a bad, a poorly put together, poorly painted Lion, so I get the feeling that no matter what you end up doing with the guy, he's going to look fantastic. And I mean, I think if I recall properly, you've posted some of your paint jobs on the Discord, and they always look fantastic, so I can't wait to see what your version of the Lion looks like. Not enough time at the moment? I definitely get that. Okay, so I need to let these guys dry for a minute, and I'll be right back. I need to clean out my airbrush. I'm pretty much done
with it, so I need to do that. Before I do though, check this out. This is from Horde Miniatures. This is their version of Lorgar. And the thing that impresses me most about this is I got myself an 8K printer not too long ago. And so I decided to print him out at a smaller size just to see how it would look. I tried to print him at the size of, you know, Guilliman or any of the other Primarchs, but he ended up being a little tiny. So that's fine. I'm just using him as kind of a project. But what looked to be, I don't know if they're showing up really clearly on the camera, but what looked to be like little wrinkles and mold lines, that's actually super intricate line work all over Lorgar's armor. I know, right? The armor does look really cool. I'm kind of in love with this model. Horde Miniatures does an absolute bang-up job, but they print these at display height instead of at game height. So I shrank him down about 40%, I think. Yeah, I don't know if you can see it on this angle, but there's some really clear line work that's coming through on the model. Whoops. And that's what makes it so amazing to me, is just that as a Dark Angels collector, I was distressed to see the Lions sell out so fast, but with my huge backlog, it felt like a chance to do some catch-up. Well, welcome to the chat, Anayan? I'm really sorry if I messed that up, but that's kind of how I've had to treat it too, is like, you know, clearly we have enough to paint. But good to see you. I'm actually going to be right back. What I was working on is I've kit bashed some intercessors back together from another unit that I kit bashed poorly. And now that I'm done priming them, I'm going to go ahead and wash out my airbrush. So if you give me a moment or two, I will be right back. And I just really hope they release more of the Lion and we get to see some amazing looking paint jobs for him. One moment, please. Oh, goodness gracious. Oh wait, no, there's plenty of that. I'm going to put you back here. So I can like these over here as much as I thought I would. Okay. I have my airbrush cleaning set up on a desk adjacent to the desk that I'm sitting at, so whenever I need to clean out the airbrush, I end up having to get up and move somewhere else. I don't even know if you guys can still hear me, given that I'm so far away. But I will be back very shortly. Good. Okay, I'm back. So I don't need this anymore. Yeah, but the thing I most recently did, and something I'm kind of really proud of, because I don't paint a whole lot of things outside of like Space Marines, and I'm trying to branch out. I've done a couple of neat little things. Painted the Sesher Gang lady, finished her up as the school year ended. Really focusing on trying to get better at like blending and skin tones and highlights, and not quite there yet, but pretty happy with how they're turning out. This was the first one I did, and I thought this was a fantastic model. I can't remember who I followed. I believe it was Jose Da Vinci's or Sergio Calvo's tutorial for skin patterns, and I'm pretty pleased with how this ended up looking. But beyond that, I've also been working on some orcs because I decided to do an orc army. So like this guy, I think I did part of him on stream. If not, I didn't. He's from Puppets War, and I'm really stoked with Puppets War's orc models. This one is probably my favorite because of his weapon being, you know, a artillery shell strapped onto a cleaver, and then you know, the trigger is just the hammer on the primer. That's absolutely hilarious to me. And I'm also just really happy with how the details on him turned out. And if you're interested in trying out speed paints, if you haven't already, I gotta say, love the speed paints. This guy was Zenithal primed, and then I did nothing but speed paint on him, and he still turned out pretty fantastic.
But no, the most recent thing that I did was I went ahead and got this guy done. He's what I've been working on the past couple of days. And he's very heavily inspired by Akira. I tried to get the infamous bike slide, and from the side you can see it a little better because he's very clearly veering on the bike. I think I should have probably got it a little higher, but hopefully the smokes, the simulated dirt clouds do a good enough job of kind of showing that off. But yeah, another model that I'm really happy with this guy. I can't wait to use him in game and watch him explode. So my plan eventually is to make an entire army of like mainly orc vehicles, and they are all going to be based off of movie vehicles from like the 70s, 80s, and 90s. So hopefully I can make that come to pass, and hopefully it'll be good. I think my favorite thing on this guy is that I tried to do the decals kind of like that are on Kaneda's bike in Akira, but obviously done with an orcish perspective. So like instead of the word Canon being written on there because it's, you know, a Canon camera, I just put gun. And instead of like immigrant, I put weird boy over there. So I had a lot of fun putting this guy together. I even kit bashed this little cowling, which I know blocks off the lights, but I really don't care. I tried to get it to have more of an Akira style like profile to it with the limited stuff I had. Either way, real happy with that, how that turned out. So on to contrast painting. Now I will say, contrast paints are not something I do regularly, so this is always going to feel a little weird to me. But what's happening now is, let's go ahead and get my palette out actually. Get myself a palette. Take a towel. Got my big brush. Let's go ahead and do this on one of the models I ain't too keen on. So we're gonna go ahead and do this guy first. Gonna mix up the Imperial Fist contrast a little bit. You have to watch Akira again soon. Yeah, it's an amazing, amazing movie, and it's really funny to me. Well, not funny, but just neat to see how many different people and how many different animators were inspired by that bike slide, because it is all over the place in popular media, you know? Okay, here we go. Now, I will say, I'm not super comfortable painting with contrast paints because it's not a style of painting that I do. So, I have no idea how good or bad this is going to look. I watched Darcy Bono's video on it, and hers turned out fantastic. So I'm hoping that I can replicate, you know, a fraction of her artistry with mine. But yeah, it's basically just taking a bunch of, I've got the steps over on the corner in the graphic, or in the list, but those are basically the steps to getting what looked to be a very, very convincing Imperial Fist color scheme going on. And given that I tend to use Averland Sunset for my Imperial Fists, this is going to be very interesting because Averland Sunset has that kind of orangey hue, and I don't know if the Imperial Fist contrast paint really sells that well. So I suppose we shall see. One thing I did hear about trying to do contrast paint is that you should not be trying to use a small brush. I read that you actually want to get a fairly large brush that covers a lot of area quickly, so it encourages the paint itself to spread over the entire area. Because if you don't, then you end up with a lot of streaking, and that's obviously not good. So we will see if this ends up being the case as I continue working on this guy. And I gotta say already, I'm pretty impressed with how this is turning out. I haven't thinned down the contrast paint at all. I haven't really done anything. I'm just using this giant, I don't remember if this is a Da Vinci or a Raphael, but this giant brush that's like a number 4 to go across all of it. But yeah, I was just thinking about this. I was watching, I'm catching up on my Doigan Swift Twitch streams because I like listening to them while I do things. And they were asked sometime in late April
their top 5 animated movies. And that got me thinking about it. If I had to choose my top 5 favorite animated movies, what would they be? And I was kind of surprised, honestly, that Akira ended up being there, because I know I like that movie, but I didn't realize I thought that highly of it. It wasn't necessarily based on, you know, which ones are critically the best or which ones are artistically the best. It was more like, what 5 movies would you call your favorite that were animated? So, as always, I'm kind of curious what you guys think. What kind of movies you would enjoy. I feel like I'm having some weird thin spots. That might just be because I painted the contrast paint too thin. It's not going to matter. I'm going to go back over it anyway. Oh, I missed a spot. But yeah, I'm very excited for 10th edition's new rules. I've already downloaded the codex or the index for Space Marines and looked through it. In fact, I've been downloading all of them and just kind of keeping them on an external hard drive folder, so that way I can just have quick reference to pretty much every army in the game, which is something I did do with 9th edition. With 9th edition, I kept acquiring the codexes and saving them all on a hard drive, but with things like Wahapedia and Battlescribe, it became increasingly unnecessary, so they just sit in my hard drive. But I think having the indexes with the way that they've outlined the data cards, it's been a very, very intelligent move, and I don't know how much money Games Workshop is looking to lose by not keeping their codexes the only way to get some of the stuff. But I can't imagine it being a whole lot, because people weren't buying their codexes anyway. I mean, they were, but at the same time they weren't, you know? So I think this was a very intelligent move by Games Workshop. If people really want the codexes for the art and the lore and whatever else, they'll get it for that. But right now, I'm more interested in being able to play the game quickly and easily with friends. Use most time the Forte Synthetic Series 363 as a brush. I've never even heard of them. I'm assuming they're good if you're using them. I used, when I first started this, I spent way too much money and bought a bunch of Games Workshop Citadel brushes because I thought that, you know, if you're going to model paint, you want to get good model brushes. And so I've got a ton of those, and I've kind of been working my way through them. And since then, I've switched over to a Winsor & Newton brush that was a Christmas gift, and I've been using that. But for most jobs, unless it's a detail-oriented section like a specific layer or blend, whoops, a moment, I'm still using some of those Citadel brushes until I finally break them all, because I've noticed I don't treat my brushes very well, and that definitely shows through when I'm trying to do detail work, because I've worn them down so badly. So I'm trying my best not to. But I'm finding that I am exceptionally rough on my brushes. Okay, so this guy is looking pretty well covered. I do like this pose, though. I think this is a good pose. A+ pose to the sculptor who came up with this. I'm a little irked because somehow I'm missing a few shoulder pads. I thought I got an Imperial Fist upgrade sprue frame as part of an army trade with an individual who didn't really want to paint his army. He didn't have the time. So I traded him a bunch of stuff that I had already printed, painted, whatever, and he traded me like a combat patrol and some other bits and bobs, and part of that was an Imperial Fist upgrade frame. And so I thought I had, you know, a squad of 10 pauldrons, but I'm missing like 3 of them, and I have no clue where they are. And I'm a little annoyed by that, because I'd like to keep it consistent. But with this case, I ended up saying screw it, and I just 3D printed some other shoulders that were close enough. because they're infantry, they're baseline. No one's going to notice, no one's going to care. If they do, then I'm going to go ahead and leave. I don't do organized tournament games. There's no point, at least not for me. So, it is what it is. Some guys are going to have some nice official GW plastic, others are not. Speaking of, if you guys are considering getting a 3D printer, now is a really good time because the companies are starting to roll out their 12K printers or whatever. And the resolution those things are getting is absolutely incredible. But for most things, you're not going to need it to be that good. And what it means, though, is that their 8K printers, which were already obscene in terms of detail, are coming down in price tremendously. So you can get an incredible deal on an incredible printer and get like a bundle. And if you have the space, you can start 3D printing. I bought mine right before this all happened, so I spent almost over $600 on all my stuff, and now it looks like they're selling the printer for somewhere around $350, $380. So that's like $200 off on what is a fantastic printer. That's what I printed my Lorgar Mini on, and actually, I printed this proxy of Bayard's Revenge, which I need to get some shoulders on. But this was never really thought about top 5 animated movies, maybe The Incredibles, Into the Spider-Verse, Weathering with You, The Girl Who Leapt Through Time, and The Emperor's New Groove. Yeah, the printers do get cheap. They got cheap really quickly. And that's a great list. I've never seen Weathering with You or The Girl Who Leapt Through Time. I've never even heard of Weathering with You. But the rest of those movies are pretty top shelf. Yeah, I mean, a couple years ago, 3 years ago now? 3 years ago, I bought a Anycubic Mono SE printer, and that is a 4K printer with a like 6.125 size print bed, and that thing was as a bundle with the wash and cure station, and you know, all the bits and bobs. That thing was about $700, and then 2 years later, I was able to get an Elegoo Saturn II, which is an 8K printer, so double the resolution. Well, no, my original one was a 2K printer, my bad. So, 4 times the resolution with a 10-inch bed, build plate, build volume area, and considerably better in every way. And that thing was about $200 less with all of the bells and whistles. So I'm just impressed at the speed of technology. Well, that makes sense. I'm glad that I'm impressed that the movie made that big an impression on you, that it's already one of your top 5 favorite animated movies. Gosh darn it, I keep knuckling the who's this? So do you know, like, the controversial, hectic story behind The Emperor's New Groove? Because that movie went through the weirdest development hell I've seen, and to be honest, I haven't seen a whole lot of development hell, but there was a YouTube channel I watched that did a very thorough breakdown of how messy the development for The Emperor's New Groove was, and it was very impressive that a movie got made at all, and very unfortunate that it didn't perform as well as it could have. Frozen printer with 8K at 7-inch display for €650. Yeah, and Frozen, if I recall properly, their printers are of sturdier build, but they're still overpriced too. I'm pretty sure you, and that's because the sturdier build, right? There's less likely for part failure. But you can get a larger printer at the same resolution from Anycubic or from Elegoo for about €200 less. I'm pretty sure at this point. Okay, this is the sergeant, so he's gonna have to be pretty. I don't want to mush up his face too badly. Okay. One more, and then hopefully these guys will all have had time to dry. But yeah, I remember when The Emperor's New Groove came out, it was completely overshadowed, and I didn't think much of it because I didn't go out and see it, and then a girlfriend showed it to me, and I was like, why did I not see this movie? And I'm really happy that it's kind of gotten better notoriety as the decades have worn on and people have realized that it's actually a fantastic movie. Excuse me, I'm sorry. I'm dealing with allergies, I guess? Because I decided to go outside today. But it was very interesting seeing how thematically it doesn't really fit with the Disney canon, and that's part of why it didn't do so well. The display at Anycubic is bigger, so the resolution is poor. Yeah, that's not entirely wrong. I think, or that's incredibly not wrong. That is incredibly correct. Those are the words I'm looking for. At that point, though, depending on what you're trying to deal with, it's kind of negligible. You know what? Gosh darn it. You know what I mean? Because you are correct. Obviously, well, not obviously, but the resolution will be, or the what the heck would you call that? The micrometer range, I guess, is not as dense, and so your detail won't be as fine. Though I would contend that when you're dealing with numbers that small, generally, not all the time, but generally, you're not going to be able to notice that. You know what I mean? I felt like 8K, pushing it to 8K was really, really testing the limits of the human eye. Because I thought my 2K printer did amazing work. And then I got the 8K printer, and to be honest, it's good, it's great, but the biggest thing about it for me is that it prints faster, and the build plate is much bigger, so I don't have to monitor as many small... I'm sorry, I keep nudging the camera, guys, by the way. I don't have to keep monitoring the job to try and get more out of it. Unfortunately, it did also turbocharge how much I could print out on a given weekend, and so I created a ridiculously stupid painting queue for myself, and kind of had to realize I needed to slow down. Okay. You're an engineer, so you love technical improvement, and that's perfectly legit and makes a whole ton of sense. Yeah, being able to... one moment, I'm going to blow my nose. Being able to see that kind of technical improvement is always a nice thing, and especially knowing what it all means. I can definitely understand wanting to have the most efficient, well-tuned device. Okay, so this guy's all done. We're going to let him sit for a second. We're going to... what the... oh. Got a magnet on his butt. And then you, and then you, and then you. So, I don't think these guys are quite dry yet, so I'm probably going to have to give them a little longer. I am impressed with this color, though. So the next thing that I'm going to want to do, once they dry, is give them a hefty dry brush with an ivory. And the ivory I tend to use isn't really an ivory, it's called pale sand. It's a really warm off-white, so it's darn near perfect. But before that, I think what I want to actually do is paint in all of the black spots on him. And that way I can deal with that, get that out of the way before he gets brush painted again. So in the meantime, what do I want to do in the meantime? In the meantime, I think I'm going to continue working on these Escher Gang ladies. Have you tested a hairdryer for contrast paints? I have, but I also have this problem where I've broken my hairdryer. I've got this one, which is a really cheap model I got from Walmart, but I've dropped it so many times that the high doesn't work anymore. I need to crack it open and reattach the circuit. Not a bad idea, though, so I think I'm going to do that. I just didn't want to have the sounds of it, blasting in your guys' ears. I remember reading somewhere that using a hairdryer was not the recommended method and that you should let it dry naturally, but I don't recall why. So, I guess I am going to go ahead and do this and speed up the process a little, because I'm very curious on how effective this actually is as a method for painting these guys. Oh, there he went. Actually, that looks like it's doing a pretty darn good job. You do know about contrast paints? Okay, well then, I know I can trust you then. Awesome. I tried using them once, a long time ago, and pretty much immediately hated how it worked. And I think it's mainly because the way I would prime things was definitely not the way you prime things if you want to use contrast paints. So the fact that I've gotten better and more familiar with them has definitely helped. I've still got a fairly large, I don't even know what he's called, a mammoth centaur? Something like that. He looks really unfinished because I definitely didn't give him a thorough enough dry brushing to get his color scheme up to where it needed to be. So he just looks really dark and muted, and he really shouldn't. Because I have like 3 contrast paints. I have Iyanden Yellow, Talisar Blue, and Imperial Fist, but I bought a starter set of Army Painter speed paints. And I just wasn't very impressed with them when I first got them. Though admittedly, now that I've used them more, I definitely have a better understanding of how to use them, and I think they're fantastic. I think they're absolutely great, and I'm really happy that a tool as effective as contrast paints exists. What I am not so happy with or impressed by is how this guy is got such an incredibly sharp turn to his head. Though I will admit, he's going to be fun to paint. I painted this face once before for a commission. The client specifically asked for him to be black, and I thought that was kind of neat, and he has the single angriest face I've ever painted. It definitely didn't help that I gave him, like, pinprick pupils, so he just ended up looking like he was in a state of complete and utter rage. And that was very silly. So, for 10th edition, I'm sorry, I'm very excited about 10th edition. What has been your guys' biggest, like, excitement over 10th edition? What has been the biggest thing that has got you hyped up or ready for or excited about 10th edition so far? I know we're still not done releasing the army stuff, but they've released quite a bit of it already, and it's looking pretty darn good. I know that some armies definitely got kind of the short end of the stick, but I don't know. I feel like they've done a good job with pretty much all of them. Actually, what do I want to do? Go ahead, use this, and we're gonna get into some traditional painting, shall we? I'm really happy that they've turned the Firstborn tanks back into useful things. Like, I feel like the Rhino, the Land Raider, the Drop Pod, even things like the Hammerfall Bunker, they may not be viable in competitive lists, but they're sure as heck neat and fun to play now. So hopefully, I'm just getting back into painting after a 2-year hiatus, but I really haven't played since 2019. So it sounds to me like you completely missed 9th edition, and honestly, that was probably a good thing. My understanding of 9th edition isn't really the greatest because I don't play competitively, and the most I've been able to do is watch YouTube videos from people like Auspex Tactics and the like. But 9th edition was kind of a mess. It was supposed to be this great simplification or an enhancement of 10th, of 8th edition, which, you know, was supposed to be simplified down from 7th. And so instead of having like super complex rules, they definitely went really hard in on keyword crunch and made the game very difficult to play unless you were a master of your codex. And that made the game very, very, very difficult. And I just remember I stopped having fun playing it because of that. Whoops, I'm nowhere near the camera. I have a friend who played AdMech, and every game for him became more of a competition to see if he could remember all of his AdMech triggers, as opposed to actually trying to win the game. Looking forward to the story. I am very tickled to see where things go, because we now have so many interesting characters coming back. We've got Angron back in the world. We've got Lionel Johnson, a very contrite and regretful Lionel Johnson, back in the world. It's been neat to read. And again, I've only been reading this through tertiary reports. I personally have been knee-deep in the Horus Heresy. We were just starting to get back into playing with a Crusade League when COVID happened. Well, that'll shut you down really quick. COVID was about when I started painting. Before COVID happened, I had a Tau broadside, and I believe a Fire Warrior team. And it was like, okay, these were things that I was able to paint, and they took forever, and I'm not having fun anymore, so I guess I'm done with Warhammer. And then a friend suggested getting into Kill Team. And since I'm a school teacher, we had a lot of free time. And so I spent a lot of time in between classes playing Kill Team and getting increasingly into the lore and the novels and the armies and the different paintings. And at this point, I've pretty much surpassed the poor guy in fandom, and he's probably kind of tired of listening to me talk about it. He's the AdMech player. His friends got him really into Warhammer, and he figured I'd like the game. Okay. Yeah, that's important to deal with. Good luck. But yeah, I've been very much reading Horus Heresy and that kind of stuff. I am interested in doing a crusade. I know how they work. I tried to get one started, but I realized that the paperwork and the bookkeeping was just way too much for my brain, because I was the only one doing it since I had set up the scenario and everything. And getting together to play the game became very difficult with the work week happening. So that ended up becoming a non-thing, which was very unfortunate, because I think it was fun when we were doing it. I honestly don't know. But I think they're putting out Crusade rules for the new edition, and if that's the case, I would love to try and start up another Crusade. I might actually get out of my shell and go to the hobby shop and start playing Crusade there. Because that was something that was happening. I picked up the Lion Son of the Forest, but they didn't really explain much of anything lore-wise. Yeah, my understanding with Lion Son of the Forest is that it was very much a book about bringing the lion up to speed. That was the one by Mike Brooks, right? Where the lion wakes up in the middle of a forest and he's not really sure how he got there, but he's trying to kind of reconcile his actions during the Great Crusade and who he is now, and what's happened since he's been last really cognizant of what's been going on, right? That was my understanding. And it seemed to get a pretty good reception. People seem to like it and think that Mike Brooks did did a fantastic job. But yeah, Dark Angels aren't really my army. I remember not being very fond of them in the Heresy, so I'm happy that they're getting the attention they are. But beyond that, I don't know much about them. Okay. This is going to get painted over again, because I do not want my I do not want my gun to be completely black. That is boring. Okay, let's see. He's just back, and he picks up some Loyalist Fallen, and he can teleport by planeswalking now. Yep. That's kind of my understanding. They're no longer the Fallen, they're now the Risen, or something, which I think is a very funny play on words. And like, there are definitely some Fallen out there, but these are not them. These are some other group, or these are groups that were truly loyal to the Lion. But I'm assuming there's no mention of Luther. There's no mention of anything else that's gone on in that story. Cypher isn't part of it. Yeah, I don't know. I've always wondered exactly how much editorial freedom. I'm a little bit annoyed they don't get him back with the Dark Angels in that book. I don't remember. I don't remember. I don't even know. Where are the Dark Angels right now? Because I thought he was stuck on the bad side of the Cicatrix Maledictum. Like he was over on the Whoozits of the Great Rift. Or even with the Blood Angels. Yeah, that was kind of weird. I thought that at least in the whatchamacallit book, right? In the Angron book that they had in 9th, he fought Angron in front of like Dante and whatnot. But then again, don't know, don't really remember. I could have gotten his shoulder on here too. I don't know. I feel like Games Workshop, for all of the things that they do right with the storytelling, they're a little bit clumsy with some of it. Because they've set some seeds and kind of left them to dangle until they need them again. But in the meantime, they've left their fans hanging for quite a while, and that just doesn't seem fair. Like the fact that the what are they called? The Yanid, they're kind of only halfway no longer a thing now. Because they realize that their last prone sword is with Slaanesh. I don't know. Hey Tabiko, how's it going? I am trying a painting technique to get these guys painted up. I had a bunch of Hellblasters that were really crappy looking Hellblasters because they were thoroughly kit bashed by yours truly. That I'm turning back into intercessors. Gilliman comes back, Universe Shaking Events, the Lion comes back. Yeah, well, like, he's back at least. But yeah, it feels weird that he's not helping out more with the Imperium, but I guess since he's stuck on the other side of the galaxy, he can't do much right now. But hopefully there'll be more in-lore events soon that will have him actually make contact with the Imperium and with Gilliman. Though I suppose I'm forever really sleepy lately, but I keep on keeping on. Yeah, I feel that. I'm on break, and I think my body decided since you're on break, we're shutting down too. And so I've been doing everything in my power to stay upright and awake, but my body is really trying to tell me to cut that out and go to bed. Which is weird because it's still programmed to wake up at 5 a.m., so I'm still waking up at 5 a.m. And I hate it. I don't want to do that no more. I'll have to do that no more. So what I've kind of decided to do is I do chores in the morning, and then I come down here in the afternoon and paint. That's going to be my thing. Okay, so that guy is done-ish. Next. Okay, Mr. Beaky Man, let's paint your butt. But yeah, I feel like, I don't know, I feel like they're planting the seeds for something with the lion, and we'll just have to see where that leads us to. Hopefully something better than where they've been planting seeds and then leaving them with no resolutions elsewhere. Or the fact that they introduced 5 a.m. is a good time to wake up if you like wildlife photography. Managed to get a bad photo of a raccoon dog when I couldn't sleep and was out at like 4 a.m. Yeah, but I don't like being awake at 5 a.m. I appreciate that there's some definite, benefits to doing so. Like, I appreciate the quiet that I can get at that time because I'm kind of all awake by myself. I appreciate that the day feels like it's longer because of it and I can get more done. I do not appreciate feeling exhausted for the rest of the day because my body was like, hey, it's the ass crack of dawn, time to wake up. that's not a fun feeling. I'm not overly fond of that. And I live in a city, so unfortunately the wildlife photography ain't a thing for me, and I'm not driving out to the mountains to take pictures. Though that actually doesn't sound like a bad idea for a new hobby, should I want to do that. I'll have to see if I can convince my buddy Soft Servo too, because he's also into photography. Stumble around on the hiking trails with a gym bag full of white bread slices and craft singles, screaming, "Where's Totoro?" Ugh. What you call it? Where we go? There we go. But yeah, Tabiko, I've just been catching up on the Doig Swift stuff, and I'm still so far behind. I'm at the end of April, and it feels, the parasocial thing is so weird when you're that far behind. There's so many things I want to say and do and contribute to, but clearly can't, because it's like a month and a half. City parks are way better to get close to animals. I think they're expecting a big aurora in a couple days. We'll have to remember to pay attention to that. That's really cool. And city parks are way better to get close to animals. The city park we have is not a very good one, and it's in the dead center of the city. So wildlife doesn't tend to hang out there. What tends to hang out there are homeless individuals and druggies, which is very unfortunate because it could be very pretty. One of my friends, one of my coworkers, actually got robbed a couple years ago down at the downtown late one night, and he was fine, but it was still just a traumatic experience to be walking down there with a friend, I guess, back to your apartment, and then a guy immediately accosting you with a knife and demanding your wallet. So yeah. I'm in southwestern Virginia, in the United States. I live in Roanoke, which I've mentioned before, so I don't feel too bad about doxing myself. But Roanoke is right in the middle of, like, good old boy country. With, like, a smidgen of progressivism dead center, but unfortunately, most of the institutions in the area are still very good old boy. So everything is voted very conservatively in an area that drastically needs some progressive policies in place. You live in BC, but strangely I know someone who lives in Roanoke. That's super neat. Roanoke feels like one of those weird places where a lot of people, well, Virginia in general just feels like a thing where there's like a lot of people from here, but no one really stays here, and then everyone kind of knows each other. Like, I just found out the person whose paint scheme I'm copying, Darcy Bono, she's from Virginia, and I didn't know that. And it's just like, how are so many people from Virginia? Sorry, I needed to hold my mouth a certain way to get that brush stroke. I mean, I'm definitely not going to ask you to dox the individual, but what does this person do? I doubt that they're also a school teacher. That'd be really, really strange. I'm also not native to Roanoke. I grew up in northern Virginia. Roanoke is about 3.5 hours away from the house that I grew up in by car. And so that's why I might lack any kind of accent that you would expect from southern United States. Okay. You don't actually know? That's fair. I was going to lose my mind if they were also an educator working in the public school system, because that means there's a really good chance I would have known them. And I think you're like the second or third person I've met from British Columbia. When I was in high school, I used to do a lot of the online messaging and whatnot. And there was a young lady that I knew from British Columbia. She introduced me to Balut, but didn't tell me what Balut was until she showed me pictures of it. And I was not very fond of that fact, because it was like, hey, what? So how are you doing? Oh, I'm doing fine. Just eating breakfast. Just having some Balut. What's that? Here, I'll show you. Whoa! Especially because I was a less open-minded high schooler than I am now. So getting shown pictures of, you know, half-matured chicken fetuses coming out of an egg was definitely not what I was expecting at age 15, 16 years of old, whatever. So, yeah. It was always a fun story to tell, though, whenever I hear someone talking about Balut. Okay. Let's get your little pipes. Okay, so it was
Contrast Imperial Fist Paint, then Brown Wash, and then Stipple White Ivory, and then Contrast again. Conturst. Hold on, where'd it go? Where'd it go? Nope, that's not what I want. Let's spell things correctly, shall we? Contrast, Conturst, Contrast. Okay. So the next thing I need to do is brown wash these guys. And to brown wash, then it's suggested that I do a 1-to-3 mix of contrast, medium, and speed paint. And so here's the problem. I don't have the speed paint that they want. The speed paint that's suggested is not Rhinox hide. I forget what exactly it's called, but it's essentially a dark brown. So I'm going to try and use the Army Painter speed paint, a hardened leather, and I do have contrast medium, but I guarantee you chemically these are not the same things. So I'm going to give this a shot, and we're going to see if this works. And then when it doesn't, I'll just be really, really sad. Strong tone from Army Painter? I don't have that either. Oh wait, no, I've got one more guy to do. The strong tone I ended up buying because I bought some strong tone. And this stuff, this quick shade strong tone, I was not aware that it was an oil wash. And I don't remember if you were the one who told me about it or if it was someone else, but it definitely made it so I had to learn how to use ink washes. And to be completely honest, that was not a good time. So I'm going to stay away from that for as long as I can. Well, not ink washes, whatever it's called. I've got them somewhere in here. The distilled spirits that allow you to dissolve down brown washing, or brown oil washes. But yeah, so that was my exposure to oil washes, and it to be completely honest, kind of messed up my Assault Marines. In the bottles of normal paint, yeah, I'm aware of that. They didn't have it, so I don't have any. The closest I have is the Agrax Earthshade. That I don't need this one. The Agrax Earthshade that you normally find. And I'm considering using it. I'd like to get into oils. Maybe I'll try and take a class at LVO next. Man, you're gonna go to LVO? That's freaking awesome. Depending on how fun or engaging or enjoyable or whatever 10th edition is, I might see if I can go to a sanctioned event like that. Because that just seems like a whole lot of fun. But I have, the friends that I play Warhammer with are not that engaged into it. So I'm not sure if I could convince anyone to go with me, and I kind of don't want to go alone. Because that is a lot of playing of Warhammer. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and do that. I've only been once in 2020, took a ton of painting classes, had a blast. See, that's the other thing. So did you compete in any of the competitive stuff, or did you just go to like enjoy the experience of going to LVO?
because I've thought of going to like Adepticon, which is a lot closer and a lot more doable, and just doing basically that. Not really, maybe going to play some Warhammer, but primarily going to go to like the seminars and the paint classes and all that other stuff. Oil washes will test on model buildings. Yeah, that's kind of my plan, is when I get some more terrain to muck around with, is I might use the oil washes on that. Speaking of, I don't remember if in 8th edition the big box came with terrain. I don't think it did, but I'm curious what the terrain is going to be for the starter set for 10th edition, because 9th edition came with all those cool pipes and whatnot. So here's to hoping that 10th edition starter set, like the command edition or whatever the heck you call it, comes with some really neat terrain, so that it's not prohibitively expensive and I can get it on eBay. Because I'm going to buy, I've got the starter box ordered. No, I met up with a bunch of locals who did. They were wrecked at the end, 14-hour days on their feet. The one guy's knee looked like a cantaloupe. Yuck. Yeah, see, that's what kind of stops me. I'm not a heavy guy, and I'm in pretty good shape, and I teach, so I'm used to being on my feet quite a bit. But I can't imagine enjoying going to an event like that and actually having fun unless I'm a super competitive tournament grinder. And I barely play the game for casual, so it doesn't sound like a pleasant experience. Maybe I'm going to try the contrast medium thing. And then, if that ends up looking buggery, I'm going to switch over to just using water. So, casual friendly tournaments look way more fun. And see, that's what I'm more interested in. I want to do stuff like that. I want to do game with people that's more themed. Like, I don't remember who I just saw it with, but I definitely got to see a YouTube video of someone being part of the largest narrative campaign Games Workshop ever sponsored. And to me, that looked like a blast. I wanted to do narrative campaign. I want to do one where my army is part of a larger imperium or a larger faction, and games, whether you win them or lose them, are more based on like tactical mission points and getting objectives done. That sounds like a good time to me. Playing the game at a competitive level. You wish that the Age of Sigmar starter box came with actual terrain and not a cardboard box? Yeah, that feels kind of whack. The 40k one did the same thing. Like the lower end starter boxes for 40k also came with. Wow, that medium really diluted the color down a lot. The 40k starter boxes come with a cardboard one unless you spring for the command edition. This looks fine. And the command edition, you have to go. See you guys next time. Thanks for joining me. I appreciate it. It was good seeing you. Have a good rest of your evening. But yeah, the command edition came with the nice whatchamacallit. And I think the largest starter box for Sigmar came with terrain, but I could be wrong. It's been a while since I've looked at it. The one that's almost $200. I think that one came with terrain. My goodness, I have destroyed my nose. I'll be right back. That sneeze really unlocked everything. There we go. But yeah, that's kind of my thing. I really enjoy the lore of 40k. The gameplay is, take it or leave it. It's fine. But my big thing is just being thoroughly engrossed with the lore and being able to reenact that kind of stuff on the tabletop. I want to have missions that feel like they're part of a greater narrative. And so I think when 10th edition comes out, I'm probably just going to start, making my own stuff. And so that way, whenever we play, I can come up with a valid excuse for why X would fight Y or why Y would fight Z. And the missions will have some kind of weight to them other than, play King of the Hill with this one area for 4 turns and hope that you're on it at the end. Okay, I think this is working okay. Same kind of thing. I was told to just slob it on there and it would be fine. And you can definitely see that it's doing its job. It's definitely creating some hefty panel lines and doing everything that I guess it was supposed to do. We will see, I suppose. Okay, what are we doing here? Hopefully the hairdryer trick will work again, because I think the thing that was like, don't use a hairdryer, was with Army Paint or Speed Paints, but I really don't know. I will say, this is the first product I've owned by Army Painter that I was legitimately impressed by. I am increasingly disappointed with their product lines. And that makes me sad, because the guys at Army Painter seem to be really, really cool dudes. And they clearly care. They're like doing everything in their power to try and make their products a viable, affordable, and yet still quality product, right? But unfortunately, their products just aren't good. And that's really upsetting to me. I've never struggled more than with their paint and their brushes. Actually, I take that back. There's one other product that I've really liked by them. Gosh darn it, I'm way off. I'm sorry, guys. And that's been their dry brushes. And even then, that's probably just because I've never used a good dry brush, so I don't know how bad theirs actually is. But I really appreciate the fact that they are receptive to criticism and they want to get better. I'm never going to insult a company who is clearly trying to be more than what they are. They're trying to be better than what they're at. Okay, so all this stuff is going to have to dry down, and then these guys are going to get a very thorough dry brush that will hopefully do good things for their color palette. There we go. Now, my understanding with the last layer of contrast paint that I'm going to be putting on them with for the Imperial Fist Yellow is that I'm going to want to water it down. I don't want it to be as chunky on here because I want this specific layer of like blending to show through. And so hopefully this will all work pretty well. I am kind of digging this almost burnt sienna wash that I've gotten out of mixing the Army Painter Speed Paint with the Games Workshop contrast medium. This is fascinating to me because I don't know the chemical composition of these things. Okay, get me in there, get me in there. Okay, let's clean them up a little bit. Try and make it look somewhat presentable. Because it's definitely pooling in weird places. Now, I'm pretty sure, based on how these guys are looking, that this is going to really, really, really cut down on painting times, because I can already see what's going on with how they're being layered and how the wash is resting on them and everything. So hopefully this will end up looking really good. I do not think that this brown was a dark enough brown for what Darcy Bono intended, though. So that's something I'm going to have to adjust if I want to keep doing this. If I end up getting similar results to the way I've been painting them, I'm going to be very impressed. And I'm going to have to get myself some more contrast paint. Okay. Can't forget his bundle. Put some more in here. And I guess I can be a little sloppier with the paint with the knowledge that I'm going to definitely be hitting a lot of these spots over. Okay. A little bit more in here. And then again, a 1-to-3 ratio, I suppose. That feels close to 1 to 3, I guess. Man, it looks like soy sauce. It's very strange. Okay. And actually, it looks like after I'm done doing this, I might have to sign off. I've got to feed my pets. Since I'm staying home now, my wife is a stay-at-home, a work-from-home independent artist, which I've talked about quite a bit. So she's been the one kind of taking control of the house while I've been at work during the school year. But I think what's going to end up happening is that, or what's starting to happen is that since I've got considerably more free time, I've been taking over with a lot of the domestic stuff so that she can focus more on her money-making ventures. So what's probably going to happen very soon is that I'm going to sign off, and I'm going to go ahead and feed the animals, take the dog out, do that kind of fun stuff. I might hop back on a little later, or depending on things, I might just put up a be right back sign, because it's not that long. It'll only take me about 5-10 minutes. And if you guys want to go do something else, that's cool. If not, then no, I will be back very shortly. But that'll be when I finish painting these guys up. Now, if I recall properly, the Imperial Fists follow the Codex Astartes, and part of what that means is that their sergeant helms are red. But that feels wrong, so I'm going to have to give that a double check. They're either yellow with a red stripe, or they're actually red, because that was something that started due to, oh my gosh, why am I forgetting the man's name? Aenid Thiel. And if you guys don't know about Aenid Thiel, then you should read up on Aenid Thiel, because that man had ridiculous brass balls. One of the coolest characters of the 30Ks. They definitely made him out to be a larger-than-life hero, even amongst the Space Marines. And if you don't know about Aenid Thiel, I would be very glad to explain his story to you, because he figures in very heavily to the betrayal at Calth and all of the stuff that goes on in there. And that makes him an incredibly cool figure. I'm just going to go ahead and hit this guy with a wash. Everything else is getting a wash, why not him? But what this will do is this will allow these guys to kind of dry off naturally, and then I can come back and dry brush them. So I'm going to go ahead and do what I said. I'm going to be right back. I'm going to go ahead and feed the pets and do all that fun stuff. And if you're still here, cool. If not, then it was good seeing you guys. I appreciate you being here. So I'm going to be right back. Feeding the pets. Much appreciated. Boop. Let's see. I'll be back in a minute, guys.
I am back. Very good. Okay. Also got myself some water, so I didn't forget to drink that. Okay, so hopefully that was long enough for these guys. Nope, doesn't look like it.
He still looks a little moist, which is a word I never thought I'd have to say about a Space Marine. Let's go ahead and hit him with a little bit of this and see if this helps dry him out a bit. And the idea is, oh man, I completely missed a spot on him. Shame on me. Let's go ahead and get that small of the back. And under that elbow joint. Anywhere else I miss? Not going to matter too much because, again, line troop. Not going to see too much of the guy. But still, want to make sure he looks okay. Want to make sure he looks presentable. Okay, here we go. Yep, let's see. Contrast, downwash, drive, stipple, white, ivory, contrast, Imperial Fist again, then Imperial Fist yellow, then panel line with a wash, and then edge highlight with Imperial Fist contrast plus white. Which hopefully will bring up the consistency. And then after that, it's just details on the lab. Labs. Hopefully, this won't be too difficult. Let's see. I don't even remember. Nope, you still got some on you. All these guys are still kind of, still a little damp. Go ahead and hit them with the hair dryer and hope that improves things a bit. Good. Yeah, just in some of the deeper recesses, still got some moisture going on. I don't think this brush or this hair dryer is going to be enough, but it'll hopefully get rid of most of the moisture. Yeah, one of the things that I keep seeing that are getting people upset about the 10th edition is the fact that they took away the disgustingly resilient on the Death Guard and made them far less durable. And then they saw the preview video of the Death Guard fighting the Space Marine. Was it the Space Marines? No, it was the other Chaos. And then watching them get absolutely bodied there. I don't know. I'm kind of refusing to make any judgments on that just yet. Moment, I gotta sneeze. Bless me. My hope is, as always, it's just overblown hooey. The game will be fine. Everything will be fine. My hope is that the game, my biggest hope is that the game is simple enough that I can start bringing it to the after-school club that I help run. And we can start actually finishing games of Warhammer, because I've done a couple Combat Patrol-sized games using a fairly simplified rule set for Warhammer. And that worked okay, I guess, but we could clearly do better. And my hope is that with the new rule set, that will be the case, that the game will be much easier to play, and that students will be able to play it without having to, will actually be able to finish a game. That's a better way of putting it. Now, real quick, I just want to watch that video one more time. Check to see if maybe... I don't want to say maybe. Let's see if perhaps I can check out the size of the brush. Okay. History. How to make Imperial Fist armor. Yep, she definitely made it look really good. Okay. No, she's just got a little flat brush. Same kind of thing I've got. Okay. Let's see. There's my brush. Let's take you first. We're gonna go and take some of this. And we're just gonna get it everywhere. just really get the yellow on there to really zhuzh up the color of the armor. So that it's pretty clear that I'm trying to hit highlights here. And hopefully, I'm doing this in a way that's going to look good. I watched the video one time and it was like, darn it, I'm not even close to being on camera. I watched the video one time and was like, yeah, I get it, but did I really though? I suppose we'll find out shortly. Yep, we're gonna go ahead, get all these spots over where white visibility would be good. And then, like I said, the biggest part to this, I believe, is going to be when we repaint over it with the yellow. I need to make sure that I've thinned it down enough that it's not going to splotch everywhere. And let's hope this looks okay. So yeah, see, we got a good amount of it covered. Hopefully that'll look fine. And actually, one more time, ladies, I'm going to double check the video to make sure I'm not completely out of my mind.
There's on this
Back.
one.
Nope. Whoops. Not what I wanted. Yep, there's that. And then get the contrast. Yep. That made it look all dirty. Just on all the edges. Yep, that's kind of it. She just made it look like all of the light parts got hit. So hopefully mine will have that kind of look going on as well. Move on to the next one. I'm probably going to be needing more of this paint, because there's clearly not enough here. But it's basically a Zenithal Prime. Once again, way off camera. It's basically just a Zenithal Prime with another light color, so that when we go back over it with the contrast paint, it clearly shows through. Which I think is an awesome, brilliant idea. And it looks like she's also hitting some of the darker stuff that we colored to really bring it out. There. Apologies for the post-nasal drip, guys. I really don't want to be sounding like this, and I was doing okay up until I left to go to the hardware store with the wife. So by no means am I blaming her. Being outside just got to me. Go that again. Go that again. Speaking of Army Painter and their stuff, this is the Army Painter Masterclass dry brush. This is obviously very heavily inspired by Artis Opus's dry brush line, and I've never used Artis Opus's dry brush line, but if Army Painters is getting me this kind of performance, it leads me to believe that
the Artist Opus ones are going to be absolutely fantastic. Though I did hear that their regular brushes were not that great for the price, which is kind of, you know, disheartening. There we go. Because Artist Opus tends to have a fairly stellar reputation in the painting community as far as I can know. So to find out their brushes are mid for the price that they're charging, a little bit disappointing. The fact that I'm using mid should tell you just how out of it I am today. School teacher's not allowed to say mid. That makes it sound stupid. Okay, so again, dry brush everything. I'm gonna hit it real strong in the same direction so it looks like the parts that would be hit by light are getting hit by light. Okay. I will say, removing the part of the armor around the neck was definitely a good idea, because the armor looks a whole lot better when they don't look like they're in a goofy turtleneck. Which might be part of the problem. They just constantly look like they're uncomfortable. Their shoulders are too high and pinched. They're half hidden behind that gorget that just makes it look like they're in the turtleneck from A Christmas Story. I don't know. I'm not a super big fan of the Mark X armor, and I keep finding reasons why I don't like it. Because when I first saw it, I was like, there's something off with this armor, and I don't know what it is. And as I've learned the distinction, I've asked for an Opus driver set for Christmas a few years back, but my wife looked at them and thought I'd be mad at her for spending $130 in paintbrushes, so she bought me a $100 Lego set instead. I'm not into Lego. Oops. I mean, I don't know, maybe she figured there were more pieces, so it would be more worth it? Maybe she thought you could use the Lego brushes, or the Lego set to dry brush? I don't know. I don't get it. I guess I got real lucky in some ways. My wife is, like I said, she's... Whoa, that's way too much. My wife is an independent artist, and she's also a tabletop gamer. And so we share a lot of the same hobbies. She's really into Dungeons and Dragons, so am I. You know, that kind of thing. And into video games, I am too. We briefly were both into Magic, but kind of fell out of it because it was getting too expensive. Lego retains value better, very much so, yes. Lego most definitely does. Lego is the weirdest thing to me, because it feels like it should be advertised towards small children, and I'm pretty sure it is. But Lego seems to be very heavily couched in the adult collector realm. And I guess it's because they have toy sets that are very clearly meant for kids, and then they've got collector sets that are clearly targeted to adults. But it's always struck me, because I can't imagine spending that kind of money on a set, I say as a Warhammer collector. But I guess I kind of feel with Warhammer, outside of building the models, I get to paint them and personalize them and make them my own and yada yada yada. But with Legos, it feels like I'm just building and then displaying. And there's not much else to do with them afterwards, but that's not how I get my fulfillment. Yeah, then you go, what now? Exactly. Now again, I don't want to yuck anyone else's yum. If there's someone out there who's a really passionate Lego collector, that's freaking awesome, and I hope that you have all the fun in the world doing it. But it just feels like, at least for me, my enjoyment would end after the building. Though I guess for some people that is the whole experience, right? It's the building. So I'm not really one to say anything. I'm not going to try and tell someone that, you know, their hobby is weird. I collect small soldiers. You'd rather buy Chinese knockoffs if you were going to do more Lego? I've kind of felt that way about some of the Nendoroid stuff that I've gotten. Because, yeah, all hobbies are weird. They're, you know, extreme fascination with some trinket or activity. Speaking of, my friends recently got me into pickleball. And pickleball is one of the funniest things in the world to me because, first of all, I was unaware that pickleball used to be a game called like ping pong tennis or something. It's a much older game, and it's just been given some new name by yuppies. But secondly, it really is just that. It's just tennis on a larger scale with more complicated rules. And so it's basically, yeah, pickleball is basically half-court tennis with ping pong balls, like not giant plastic aerated balls and ping pong paddles that are slightly bigger.
In fact, it used to have another name, but because they're aerated and they're so light, the balls never go very quickly. So us Warhammer people don't really have a leg to stand on when it comes to judging other people's hobbies. But let me tell you about the lore. Exactly right. I guess the argument I can say is that there's a lot more depth to war. Okay, it didn't die. Wiffle ball? Not quite. If Google would work. There's so many weird sports I know nothing about, like lacrosse or paddle. Yeah, right? It's kind of nuts how big some of those things get. It'd be cool if Google would work. I think my internet just died. No? Music's still playing. Wiffle ball, if I recall right, is like baseball. Or is that what you're saying about the porous ball? It's kind of like a wiffle ball, yeah. Kind of like a wiffle ball. Come on. Page unresponsive. Let's wait for the page. It'll show up eventually. Okay, so the next thing I need to do... My brother is getting super into disc golf, and it also has so much stuff about it.
Well, it's like with anything else, right?
If you go deep enough into a hobby, you're going to realize there's a whole subculture to that hobby. Okay, so with that...
You're not going to drench it like you did last time. You're just going to mostly focus on where you put the white. You don't need to thin this unless your highlights were very sparing, because...
Okay, well, Google doesn't want to work for me, so it is what it is.
Okay, so according to Darcy, I do not need to thin this. I'm just going to focus my highlights where I put the off-white. So here we go. Let's see if I can get this to work okay. We're going to start on you. Okay, yeah, fair enough. I can see what she was doing. I can see what it... That is a really good look. I'm actually quite impressed. Yeah, no, I was never much into sports until college, and then kind of went ham on it a little bit with recreational or rec league floor hockey, which was indoor hockey on a basketball court named Sneakers, which I know for a lot of people ruins the fun of hockey. But for someone who is ridiculously uncoordinated, such as myself, made hockey very playable. And so I got super into that. I got super into American football. Was never any good at any of it, but at least learned to have fun with it. Okay. Yeah, that actually does do a really good job of bringing some... I used to play Ultimate Frisbee, but then I blew out my back, and the casual club decided they wanted to be competitive while I was off and started to be not fun to play with. Yeah, that sucks. I'm sorry to hear that. It's always the worst when a play group that you're with starts turning the entire thing into an arms race. That's been the worst kind of experience. Floorball? It probably is floorball. That's always the worst kind of experience when you start a game for kicks and giggles and for fun, and your friends all start for fun, but then they get bored with doing it for fun, so then they start turning it into for reals. Not my favorite thing in the world, and I'm guilty of it, don't get me wrong. That's kind of how Magic turned out. When I first started playing Magic the Gathering, I was doing it because, oh, it's this cool game where you have all these neat cards and they do all these neat things. And then I realized I was getting my ass kicked every time I went out to play, so I started looking up how to not get my ass kicked. This golf seems regular than regular golf because at least it doesn't destroy nature. Very true. With disc golf, you just have that one, like, thing that catches the golf, or the frisbee, right? Yeah, golf courses are an abomination. And that makes me sad to say because I really enjoy golf, but golf courses are an abomination. But yeah, no, the only sport that I've really been into for the past 5-6 years has been boxing, which I'm pretty sure I've talked about quite a bit on here. So I'm going to spare you from any more from that, but that's a sport that I thoroughly enjoy, and while I don't appreciate the business aspect of it, the actual sport aspect of it I think is incredibly fascinating. But I got to play pickleball a few times this week, and I'll be honest, I had a really fun time. Like I said, it's a half-court game. The ball does not travel very quickly, so you actually have a chance of basically being not athletic and still being able to play the game, because you don't have to run all over the court to get things. I played one friendly, some signage and cages all you need. Apparently many discs will get lost in the woods. I played at one friendly tournament and had fun, but damn, who wants to spend all weekend sprinting around in 100-degree heat in the sun? You'd be surprised. And that's, again, the weird thing about hobbies. It makes people do weird, dumb things. I don't know, I used to do medieval reenactment sword fighting, so definitely walked around in 60 pounds of chain armor, chain mail, and plate. Felt like an idiot afterwards. I really don't know if I like the look that this is giving them, but it's not much worse than when I just hit them with a wash. It might be because I did it wrong, it might be something else, but it's probably because I didn't ID the highlights very well, but it's really not giving me the type of shadow that I want out of this. I wish I could do sword fighting, but too inconvenient. Yeah. The only way I was able to do it is I had a friend who was super into it, and at least more recently. And back then I had a friend who was into it, and it was one of those things where on the weekends we could go to a state park and practice a little bit, mainly slowly so we didn't kill each other. And once people such as myself started getting live steel and armor, we were able to amp up the intensity a lot. Okay, see, that was a good blend. That was pretty. I'll go back to it in a second once I'm done with his face, but that worked out real nicely. The arm right there had a really nice blend from yellow down to that shadow. And it looks like actually there's a decent amount of that throughout the Whoozits. Okay, I got one more. And then I can call this done. Now, one thing I will say is this is not saving me a whole lot of time. Though I do suppose that this method of painting is more meant for people without an airbrush. Because, so far, based on the video, based on the Twitch video, I've spent about... I tried SCA Heavy Metal, the lower armor was just hockey gear, got my shoulder hit hard one time. Yeah, that tends to be the way to go about it. It's like hockey gear or lacrosse gear, or in the case of people who really spend time and money on it, they have very thick gambesons that they'll use that look like heavyweight fencing jackets. Maybe a slightly darker color of the first contrast coat. That's actually not... I'm specifically supposed to be going light with it, because the idea is that the bone color that I put down is supposed to be the thing to give me the true contrast coat again, whereas the dark brown that I put down is supposed to darken and create a nicer... Like, you can kind of see it right here on the backpack. It creates a nicer contrast of the darker yellow versus the lighter yellow. I have some leather working gear. I was totally going to make my own armor. Changing hyperfixations. Yeah, I know, right? That's kind of been my problem, is I'll get super interested into something for like a year and a half, 2 years, and I'll spend a lot of money on it, and then I'll plateau and reach a point where it's like, I'm not having fun anymore, and then I'll stop. But all that money I spent on it is now tied up in useless equipment. But I mean, I guess that's just part of the journey of finding your thing, right? Like, the Warhammer right now is probably... Leatherwork seems like a rewarding hobby, but the cost of entry seems high. That's my understanding of it. Is that, I have a friend who was into leatherworking, and that's kind of what he said, is that it's, very cool. You get to make neat things, but you have to spend a lot of money to get in it. Okay. We're gonna go back over all this. And I'll wait to do that later, because that's what's gonna end up being, that's gonna end up being white underneath. But yeah, like you can see here on the shoulder, couldn't find leather thick enough to make my lamellar out of. Oh, that's unfortunate. You can see here that the dark brown wash ended up being the shading once the other layer of Imperial Fist contrast went on it. Definitely not bad. I'm glad I tried this experiment. I'm probably not gonna do this again. Honestly, having the airbrush is just much easier. So next time I'm just gonna do my steps, which, don't get me wrong, they're not exactly... It's not exactly simple. I prime black, I overspray with a white, and then I hit that with a brown, and then I overspray that, and then I'll do the yellow. If I could find a brown prime, that would make my life a whole lot easier. But yeah, that definitely, it worked. It did what it was supposed to do. They don't look bad. They're definitely good enough for tabletop. I don't know. Once I get this last guy, I'll put one of them up again, and you guys can tell me what you think. Because what's gonna happen next, what should happen next, I'm not gonna do it tonight because I'm running out of time. But what should happen next is that I should go back and paint all the details using traditional painting techniques. So you will just have to imagine, since I'm not doing it now, what it would look like if I went back with all of the detail work and painted that using traditional painting techniques. The main goal for this one was to get the yellow to have some depth to it beyond what the baseline Imperial Fist yellow does for the model. I kind of feel like if you, I don't know, basically prime the entire model brown and then zenithal sprayed it, or like dry brushed it with an ivory, and then did this, you would get very, very similar results. You know what I mean? Because that's kind of what it feels like I did, just in a slightly more tedious fashion. Because what you guys just saw was me taking essentially 2 hours to base coat 5 guys with better contrast. So let me go ahead and get this shield up and running. And again, these are all details that I'll definitely buff out and make more interesting to look at later. Apologies for the camera work. That terrible camera work. Okay. Okay, let's get that in there. Yeah, all I can say about doing... I didn't do SCA because at the time SCA was a bunch of... I hate to say this because it sounds very condescending, but it felt like... I was in college, forgive me. It felt like a bunch of tryhards putting on hockey gear and whacking each other with bamboo canes. And that's not really fair to them because they were working in the most protective, you know, safe way they could. And now that there's so much better combat and sparring equipment, they're probably now doing full metal contact and all that stuff. But back then, it just felt like really silly LARPing. Which is dumb, because the way we were doing it, we had full armor, and we're using, not stage combat blades, battle-ready blades that weren't sharp. Okay, so, here we go. Let's take a look at these guys. Oh, ew, you were still wet. Unfortunate. I made a few knives over the years, taught myself how to weld last year by building a belt grinder, but the VFID I need to run the whole thing cost about $600, so I haven't gotten to use it yet. Fair enough, man. That is a lot of stuff to have to do. I wasn't into the RP, but to be honest, that was all I found at the time. Yeah, no, I feel like I got very lucky, and I'll use that term loosely. The gentleman that taught me was stationed in Germany, and he was taught by people in a local village near where he was, near the military base. I don't remember any of the information beyond that, but that's how he learned. He didn't believe in the SCA. So, this is essentially what we got. I stopped at Contrast Imperial Fist Yellow. I stopped at that step. I don't really feel the need to panel line it again, because everything looks like it's still keeping to the panel wash. But what is your guys' opinion on this look? The dark brown wash and then the bone white dry brush was supposed to create some volumetric highlighting so that we had deeper shadows versus the lighter color of the Imperial Fist Yellow, which you can really see well right there versus up here. But I don't know. Do you think this is worth doing for all your models when this takes about 2 hours for 5? Oh, I missed a spot. I didn't get the guy's tummy. Sorry, that was bothering me. Hard to say. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. To me, that was fun, but it felt like a lot of extra work knowing that I have an airbrush. And I know that's kind of a snobby thing to say. It's like, well, I don't have to do this, I have an airbrush. But, since I have the tool, it just makes painting that a whole lot easier. In fact, one moment. Cleaning off a wet palette. Like I said, with an airbrush, other than changing out the paint cups and cleaning out the airbrush in between colors, it really is as simple as prime black, spray white, or overspray white, then spray yellow, and you get pretty similar results. In fact, let me find one real quick. Like this guy right here. He was sprayed black. I was never happy with how my Deathwing would turn out until I started airbrushing. That is very true. Bone white is a hard color to do. But yeah, you can see this guy right here. This was actually a fairly quick paint job, but he kind of had that going on where I sprayed him down. I gave him a zenithal spray of bone white over a black, and then, or over a dark brown, and then I oversprayed it with yellow. And that takes me about 30 minutes to do with a squad of like 5 or 10. So I really do think it is the yellow that, or the airbrush that really does make life easier. Also, here's a question for you guys. Plastic or resin? What do you think? Is this guy plastic or is this guy resin? Plastic or resin? Not deep enough in this to know. I mean, I'm gonna take that as a compliment, because this guy is resin. He is not an official Games Workshop model. There is nothing official on this in this model. The base is from a third-party company because I didn't want to buy through Games Workshop and waste a ton of money. And this entire thing was 3D sculpted, and I printed it using I want to say I used my new 8K printer. I don't recall.
Yeah. Pretty good resin. I'm painting a resin Asmodai right now, and it has issues. That's unfortunate.
This is 3D printed.
This guy is 3D printed. Wow. And apparently they can't even focus on him. This guy's 3D printed.
This guy is plastic.
This was from the Age of Darkness starter box. This one is
3D printed. God, he got really, really close with the posing even. I mean, when you see them next to each other, you can tell the eyes are a little bigger, the buckles across the chest are definitely chunkier, the toes are slightly wrong. There's a lot more wrong with it when you look at them right next to each other, but the quality of the resin print just absolutely blows my mind. Just how close they've gotten to the real McCoy. You know what I mean? So I'm pretty darn happy with the fact that I didn't have to spend like another $150, $180 to make this extra set. But I'm also a little bit livid right now that they changed it so that Imperial or that tactical squads have to be in squads of 10, because right now I have 3 squads of 5.
I'll figure it out. That being said, though, I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna go ahead and surprised that GW isn't hammering down on those legally. They're trying. They are really doing their best. Don't get me wrong. Games Workshop has been copyright striking and IDing a lot of different 3D model makers, but they're trying. The 3D model makers themselves are doing their best to try and keep their names legally vague enough that you can't find it unless you actively look for it. And they're also starting to mark their stuff as private if it gets caught again. So the 3D printing community has definitely gotten to a point where they're doing everything in their power to be very vague about where they're getting their stuff. Myself included. I really don't feel comfortable sharing with people where I'm getting my prints anymore. So that is definitely a thing. I mean, my biggest problem, and this feels bad to say. But I can't afford Games Workshop's prices, and my understanding is outside of like some of their terrain and a couple of other little bits, all of their stuff is printed in Britain. Like they don't outsource, which is partially why their stuff is so expensive. But I can't afford it all. And so, since I'm not playing in Games Workshop official sanctioned tournaments, and I refuse to use these proxies for that, I'm printing out stuff for me and my friends to use when we play casual games. To me, it's not a whole lot different than printing out getting a proxy made of a card via make playing cards or something on for Magic the Gathering, because I don't want to spend $800 to get a Mox or whatever. I know there are a lot more. They do outsource some stuff to Asia. Yeah, basis and terrain. That's my understanding. The main minis though are all done in-house. But yeah, so I definitely don't feel bad about printing them, but I would feel really bad about using their stuff in official tournaments. Actually, you guys want to see something neat? I started this project really early, but I've got a buddy who A, really likes Doom, and B, really likes the Salamanders. So, using some of that 3D printed stuff, I managed to make this, and I drilled a hole in this guy so that he's going to be holding him up like so, and I'm going to put some mountainous terrain underneath them, and I've got another squad of, I think, 9 other bloodletters that I'm going to have crawling up and around the mountain. And I'm going to put this in one of those shadow boxes, and
one of my other friends is big into electronics. He's going to make a soundboard that you can press, and when you do, it'll play the old 8-bit version of the Doom theme and the modern day version of the Doom theme. So this is another project that I've been working on, and I'm kind of excited to continue because I think this is a really neat idea.
But yeah, some other fun stuff. Okay. That being said, guys, I'm going to go ahead and I would feel bad about the bootleg stuff, but Games Workshop posts record profits each year and still insists on price increases. Yeah, that is fairly true. I always forget what the difference is between, like, profits versus income or whatever the heck they do. I have no idea what kind of money they're making. I have been fairly impressed with their responsiveness to fan critiques. They seem to be very decent at doing that, and so I don't want to condemn them as badly as something like Wizards of the Coast, who are sending the friggin' Pinkertons out to get accidentally leaked cards, or many of those other companies. But that's a whole nother story. Like I said, as long as I'm not trying to pass their stuff off as real in tournaments, I'm not too worried about it. I wouldn't do that just because of personal scruples. But yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and head off. Thanks, guys, for joining me. I definitely appreciate it. I'm glad that you were here. I don't know how often I'm going to be streaming because some afternoons I just kind of want to paint. But yeah, I'll see y'all later. Have a good rest of your day, and maybe Wednesday, maybe not, because I'm going to be out of town starting Thursday, and the next weekend I'm going to be out of town. I'll figure that out. Anyway, later, guys. Have a good one. Bye-bye.